Heavenly Delusion is an amazing anime that is airing this season. Too bad it's getting the summertime rendering treatment and is stuck in Disney jail, so therefore not many people are watching it. But if you have missed out on watching this anime, then let me tell you why it's worth joining Luffy's crew to watch it if you're unwilling to pay for Disney or Hulu. Heavenly Delusion is something special with how it handles its story and characters. Not a lot of series can get you this invested after one episode and then keep that intrigue going for so long. That is all in part to how they have chosen to tell the story, which is by splitting it into two parts. We have the story of the two main characters taking place outside in a desolate wasteland that was once Japan, and another story which is about children stuck behind a wall being used for research. These two stories help to get a better understanding of everything that is going on. I can't say for sure, but I think that the latter story takes place before all the major events in the former story. By which I mean I think that the children are the cause of the great disaster that is always mentioned throughout the story. Of course, I don't actually know this for sure, but all signs are pointing towards this being the case. There are a lot of connections between some of the characters in both stories, however, I want to talk about that a little bit later. Heavenly Delusion uses split storytelling to make the entire story come together in a really nice way, making everything just work out nicely. This series covers a lot of dark themes, all of which they do very well. Trauma is one of those themes. All of the characters have some sort of trauma. It could come from loss, loneliness, or just outright being depressed. There are many forms it takes in this show, but the way that the show handles it is great. We get to see all the characters struggle. They may be hallucinating or just remembering the past with regret. Either way, we get to see just how it affects all the characters in different ways. Some people can just never grow past their trauma, but others can, and we get to see both sides on display in this anime. Some people grow stronger and learn to deal with their situation. Others just can't cope with it and just live day by day waiting to die. There are so many ways to handle trauma, and seeing it handled in so many ways and done well is awesome and makes the whole anime so amazing. How would you deal with a situation like the Great Disaster where you lose your home and maybe even family and friends? Well, this series talks about this. Most people during this time we see kinda just live day by day. They try to survive using whatever means they can. Others are fighters and go out of their way to try and bring the world back to the way it was before. There are plenty of ways to try to survive in this world, but many people didn't survive and were lost. This series covers loss in an amazing way. Every single character in this anime has lost someone important to them. Whether it be family, friends, whoever, and you can certainly see how it affects each person. I remember episode 2 very well for this because we got to see firsthand what it can do to some people. With a woman who lost her son but refused to believe he was actually gone. It led her to trying to protect the monster that no longer saw her or anyone else as anything more than someone to kill. This was a very sad episode, but it set the tone for what this series was really about and set up for some other amazing themes for the future of this series. Loneliness is something inevitable in a post-apocalyptic world. You have lost so many people, so of course it'll be plenty hard to open up and form new connections with people. What I love about this series is that it understands this very well. We see the connections formed between characters that have known each other for a while and traveled together, but we have also seen the past where they were alone, not knowing what to do but to survive. Now, seeing a real bond between the characters has been great. Loneliness is a trap that so many people fall into, and it can be hard to form connections with new people, especially living in a world where you don't know who you can trust. This series shows us what it is like to see people breaking out of the curse of loneliness, with our main characters forming a very close connection in their travels, which makes for some really great interactions between them that makes the series stand out a lot. This anime talks about love in an interesting way. So firstly, the main duo. I don't know how Kiriko feels about Maru, but it is clear, as he says so himself, that he likes Kiriko. But their relationship is definitely more than just friends. Clearly these two have formed a connection that isn't romance, but is more like a sibling relationship. They clearly care about each other a lot, but at least for right now, it won't form into a romance. We also have the kids in the facility, where we see a lot of romance happening in all forms, from straight to gay and even to just friendship. These connections are the most interesting to me because they lead to a couple of theories that I have that I am nearly convinced have to be true, which are that Tokyo is Maru's mother and that Maru is somehow the cause of the Great Disaster. Now, I know this doesn't have much of a leg to stand on, especially the second theory, which I think is less likely to be true, especially considering his age being 5 years younger than when the disaster happened, but there is something going on that convinces me of something. First off, Maru being 15 is only speculation on his part, as he has no idea how old he actually is. Forgetting 5 years is still a bit of a stretch, but it stands. But for the other theory, if you look at both Tokyo and Maru, you'll see just how similar these two look, and I know it's not just an art style thing because none of the other characters resemble each other this much. I mean, they have the same hair color, eye color, and they even have the same face shape. And even if he wasn't the cause of the disaster, it was something from the facility in which I think his mother is from. You can let me know what you think down in the comments, but just from what I've seen in the anime, I am pretty convinced of at least the first theory. Despite all the dark themes this series covers, there's also a lot of lighthearted comedic moments in this series to help make the series feel way more digestible. The comedy is really good and not cringe like in a lot of other anime. Kiriko and Maru's interactions with each other are amazing. They feel like two buddies hanging out and traveling the world together. The way that they are able to weave the comedy into the more serious moments is amazing and makes them hit a lot harder. The comedy makes this series so much more fun to sit down and enjoy. The world building in this series is amazing. Through each episode, we learn more and more about the world, how it got to its current state, and where the monsters may have come from. It's actually incredible to think that in such a short amount of time they were able to establish such an interesting world. This world is desolate, there is hardly any civilization left, it is mostly just people trying to survive day to day. And yet, it doesn't look like your typical post-apocalyptic world either, with people still trying to have fun living life. This world is simultaneously really dark and also full of so much light at the same time. The mystery of the world is a big reason as to why the world building has been so good. As all the answers slowly trickle in, it makes your investment in the story and the world rise more and more. There is still so much left to learn about the world, but these questions are what keep me watching this series and what makes it so good. There are so many amazing characters in this anime. The main duo especially are really cool. Kiriko is the super interesting character with a really tragic backstory that makes you understand her character a lot more. All of her actions throughout the series can be explained through what happened in her past. Then we have Maru. He is a pretty interesting character who we don't really know anything about, but I think that's the point. He is the center of the story and the mystery, so we're not really supposed to know a lot about him. We also have the kids like Tokyo and the others. They're quite interesting in that we don't really know what purpose they serve, as in like, what are they doing in this facility? Who are they? What do they want? Things like that. It makes them really interesting and makes you really want to know more about them. The character writing in this series is great and makes the whole series come together and makes it way more interesting to watch. Heavenly Delusion is an anime that surprised me. I had no idea what to expect going into this show, and I have come out the other end being very surprised with what I have found. This show is amazing. It has amazing characters, awesome world building, great action, and pretty decent comedy. This show does so much right and has ended up being one of my favorite anime this season for sure.